In this video, we're going to look at how a resilient team is trying to make their protocol come back with more fierce than ever, and if they can survive the next few days, I definitely think there are huge gains for the people that are going to be early investors. Hey, what is up guys? Thank you so much for tuning in to another one of my videos. And in today's video, we're gonna look at Ragingbull and why I think that if this project can actually survive the next couple of days and come back from the unfortunate start that they had, this can be an opportunity to make insane gain. Now, before we jump into the video, please make sure you guys like the video and subscribe if you haven't already, and make sure you hit that bell notification so that you are notified of all upcoming videos. Prior to diving into the video, I just want to clarify that I am not a financial advisor and none of this is financial advice. You guys should only risk what you are willing to lose, as this is DeFi, the wild, wild west. And especially with the current markets being as terrible as they have been, with Bitcoin coming straight down, every protocol, in my opinion, is subject to damage because of the markets. Now, what is Ragingbull? How it can potentially come back, and a lesson overall for tomb forks and tomb fork investors to take upon from this protocol. The first thing that I want to identify is the fact that Aegis audits has already been employed and they are getting an audit done. As you guys can see right over here, Ragingbull audit in progress. And furthermore, they have a KYC pending as well. And according to the information that I found from their Telegram channel, it was clear to me that the audit and the KYC will be done within 1 to 2 days. That's extremely important because obviously that allows a sense of security and it'll allow a lot of investors to kind of flock into this project. Now, the next thing I want to explain is that it is a Toxic Deer fork. Now, a lot of us gained a good amount of money from Toxic Deer, and it has kind of been running well until recently, where it did have, unfortunately, a very big collapse. And that is because of several reasons. Now, to explain what a Toxic Deer fork is, it is to be understood that when the protocol peg token, so in this case Bull USD, drops under one peg, the DAO fund utilizes as much resources as they can to try to push this back up to peg. Now, you guys might be wondering, hey CD, they're not at peg, they're at 0.87. Why are you making this video? And that's because I want to talk about a couple of things that are very essential to understand how this protocol is still functioning even though they are under peg. The first thing I want to kind of look at is how it went. The protocol, as you guys can see, launched. We had that 2.4x before the protocol did its thing and was able to sell tokens in order to stabilize the peg. And after the peg was stabilized around that 1.01 region, there was an incredibly big sell-off that happened. Now, there are several reasons that are, in theory, the reason for which this incident happened. One of which is because, as you guys can see right here, around the same time, we had an incredibly big dump happen on Toxic Deer, and a lot of people kind of got worried, and as such it may be seen, and it was argued by a few people, that there was a big dump that happened here as well. Now, whether that is the reason or not is beyond my knowledge. However, what I wanted to see was whether we recover or not. Deer, as you guys can see right here, unfortunately did not recover, and it has been at 0.29 peg this whole time, even though the treasury has over $2 million. Here we could see that the treasury was used. The protocol was brought back around that 1.1 region. However, it did suffer from a lot of swing traders, you know, people that bought the bottom, selling the top, buying the bottom, selling the top. But overall, we can kind of see how the floor has been kind of increasing overall, getting closer to that peg region. Now, obviously, this is nice to see that we're going up there, but it's not enough to encourage investors to jump in. And that's why I personally wanted to see what the team does. Are they going to say, hey, listen, the DAO ran out of funds because we didn't really have a long time to collect funds, right? And as such, the project fails, or are they going to try to do something about it? And And to my surprise, to my happy surprise, I should say, the team showed everybody in their chat that they are willing to step it up and try their best to regain stability within the protocol. As you guys can see on their Telegram, they clarified our DAO is facing the first bigger challenge, even though the farms are fully functional and printing now. We discussed in the team and with advisors, and this is what we will do to get back to peg. We will pull half the liquidity to have it easier price impact to move the price up. So they removed some of those LP in order to make it easier for the price to increase. We'll burn 60k tokens, 60k tokens from that liquidity and put the USDCE, so 37k USDCE, into the DAO fund war chest for future buybacks. If any other protocol started off this brutally, they could have simply just taken this 37k, said adios, sell the 60k on the market, maybe get another 30k, take $60,000 in total, and simply dip away. Would it be labeled as the worst rug in the history of friggin' rugs? Probably. You know, you could probably get an award for how bad of a rug it would be. But the point stands that they could have done it, but they didn't do it. And that's something I really, really am happy to see. They have the burn transaction right here and the LPUSDC to DAO Stability Bot transaction right here. And as such, they kind of broke that LP to push the price to the best of the ability back up and use those funds that are in the USDC element of the LP and throw that into the war chest. So if you go over here, this is the war chest, to try to use those funds to stabilize the protocol. Now, the next thing I want to kind of go over is the bull arena, because a lot of people have the understanding that the bull arena, so the boardroom, is not going to be printing unless the TWAP, so the time weighted average price, is over 1.01. However, what I do think is important to remember is that this is a Toxic Deer fork. And in Toxic Deer, they actually bootstrapped their boardroom so that regardless of the TWAP, the boardroom will print Bull USD for 28 epochs, disregarding the TWAP. Now, a lot of you might be saying like, oh my gosh, this is terrible for the protocol because of the fact that we are not at peg yet and we're printing a lot of Bull USD tokens. Well, yes and no, and I'm going to elaborate both of the sides. Obviously, yes, it's bad because there's more inflation that's coming in, and as such, a lot of people might dump the tokens, causing the price to go lower. However, the benefit or the good side is that Bull share now has utility, so the B share can be staked here, and as you guys can see, 136 has been staked, which will cause the price of B share to increase, right? So bear with me now. The price of B share increases, which is the reward token for Bull USD, USDC, ELP. And this daily APR obviously goes up because the Bull share that you're earning is now worth more. And as such, it will incentivize people to buy Bull USD and make the LP and farm it here. Now, can we see that happening? So far, kind of. We went down to 0.8 and we have come back all the way up to 0.9 region. And we are kind of trying to come back up here as well. And so has the plan worked? We will only actually know whether the plan has worked or not after A, the first claim goes through, and after B, the entire circle goes through in regards to the 8 epochs, because that is what we need to see, that 8 epochs has gone through and people will be able to unstake their B share. And at that point, we need to see what the TWAP is. Of course, remember, the boardroom is going to print no matter what for 28 epochs. However, everybody knows that in Tomb Forks, the optimal point for a Tomb Fork to be in is at that 1.01. And as such, we would want to see this protocol get back up there. If the protocol does get up there, I would gladly invest more of my funds in there. However, until that point, it is very important to be vigilant and only use the money you are willing to lose, as this is obviously extremely degen. Now, it is another thing to understand that this LP actually only has 230,000 liquidity. Guess what? If there's a stream of 7 or 8 people that buy with a couple of $1,000s, that is enough to push this to peg. So it's not like it needs a lot, right? And this is where the game theory comes into play. Do we get peg first, or do we dump first? Do we gain that stability and then are able to handle that inflation as soon as it's printed and claimable? Or are we going to dump and have to figure out a way to come back up later? And that's kind of the game theory and the beauty of tomb forks. Now, of course, for a lot of people that are watching it on the sideline, it is kind of interesting because you can pick and choose exactly where you want to enter. And for other people that are invested, well, hopefully, you know, the peg is not as far off. And with 2 days of farming, you've probably already gotten back any impermanent loss that you would have gained, if not more. So I don't really see how people would be at a very high disadvantage in this position, as the DAO has kind of been buying back a lot. Now, the other thing that people were concerned about is like, holy shit, bro, you got 57,000% APR. If we just pull up the calculator real quick and calculate that, we're just going to say 58,000 APR divided by 365. That means I'm getting 158% of my money every single day. Can you imagine how much inflation is going to be created on Bull USD? Well, I agree. However, what I do want to point out that almost 50% of the shares that are staked in the boardroom are actually owned by the DAO and by the dev shares. Those shares, they put it all together in order to try to handle the inflation, to try to reduce the inflation, and furthermore, distribute that to the war chest to have some security. Now, how do I know this? Well, if we come back to the Telegram, you guys can see here that they had a notification that Dear Bulls, the Bull Arena is open. The opening of our bull represents the second phase of our protocol, and we would like to share our strategy as to how we intend to stabilize the protocol in the coming days. Number one, they're going to stake the bull share from the DAO and the dev wallet, as I mentioned, and the rewards will be kept inside the wallet and will not go into circulation. So they are going to take a certain amount away from the boardroom that's going to go directly into circulation. This will reduce emissions and lower inflation. Of course, there's still going to be an extremely high APR given to individuals. However, if the right action is taken and if there is a nice in-stream of investors, that inflation can easily be tackled, right? Number two, burn half of the seniorage planned for the developers until further notice and the protocol is stable. They're straight up going to burn the tokens, right? And that, to me, is extremely bullish. Yo, these guys are not worried about taking their money. They already showed before that they are willing to not take money from the protocol until it gets healthier. And once again here, they're going to burn half of the tokens planned. They're going to burn half the seniorage planned until further notice. And thirdly, focus on marketing efforts for the next 30 hours to introduce new investors and fresh eyes to the protocol. Which I think is extremely important, especially in the current state that the protocol is at. It is, as I mentioned earlier, guys, it's not far off from PEG. We're 13 cents off of PEG. That's not far off at all. We've seen protocols do much worse and come back with a lot less work from the team. These guys are actually putting in the effort, and of course, I give them the credit for that. And as you guys can see right here, we will not sell BUSD from the dev wallet below PEG. They're never going to sell anything from the dev wallet, which means they're never going to take any money, any profit, any earnings for their hard work when the protocol is under PEG. And I have to give that credit. I have to give that some sort of respect. Now, of course, I would like to see this at PEG. It makes me that much more confident, and I would put a big chunk of money into it because everybody obviously wants to get into it. However, it's just unfortunate how it started, right? Now, there were some issues that the team could have bettered, in my opinion. One of the biggest issues that we saw with a lot of protocols, not only Ragingbull, we saw it with Dex Finance and a couple of other protocols as well, that the UI was not set up properly at the start. So that you would stake your LP, right? I would stake my LP and my USDC value would not show up here, right? That's really detrimental for the protocol. That's really detrimental for the protocol because investors are simply going to run away. They're going to get scared because of the fact that the value of their LP is not being shown. And that's what happened. They were able to resolve this, obviously, and now it is fixed. However, there was this primary influx of investors that probably just left the Telegram and left the protocol and were like, all right, you know what? I'm not going to farm in this because it's too scary. Right? So that is a lesson to be learned, to have everything very precise. Now, of course, DeFi is very experimental in general, and it is a learning curve for everybody. And as such, it is of course a huge risk to take upon, but these things can be fine-tuned, and I do expect to see the team kind of learn upon these issues as well, and have other people that are potentially watching the video to create their own protocols learn that these kind of small little hiccups do cause a grandeur issue in the overall scene. Now, my final concluding thoughts in regards to this protocol is that they have an extremely dedicated team. I've talked to them on voice call for well over 2 to 3 hours, guys. And I can tell you right now, these guys are very dedicated. They have a very low liquidity. And as such, just a little push would actually bring this to peg. And you know what? I would not be surprised to see this get to peg, right? However, it is obviously an inherent risk because, once again, it is a double-edged sword. There's low liquidity. It can drop very quickly. Now, I personally was also waiting to watch and see as to whether or not this share token actually pumps. Now, why was I waiting to see that? Because, once again, remember the theory that if B share pumps up, the APR in the LP farm pumps up, which allows people and makes the purchasing of Bull USD that much more lucrative. Right, guys? That's what we want to see, is that people are buying Bull USD, because although 28 epochs are bootleg strapped, and the team technically does have 28 epochs to try to fluster up their protocol and try to make it function properly, it is obviously the best thing to see these protocols functioning from the get-go, or at least from the first couple of days. So me personally, I am watching this protocol. I want to thank you all for watching my video. I hope you guys have an amazing end of the week, and as always, guys, let's get that bag. Peace.